Hi guys, it's Tony Robbins. You're listening to Habits and Hustle. Crush it.
All right, guys. Today on Habits and Hustle, we have Susan Sarich, otherwise known as SusieCakes. For those of you who are not living in California or Texas, I'm telling you, this is the go-to destination if you are someone who needs to satisfy that sweet tooth. They have over 22 locations and just growing nationally. They are known for their service, for the quality, and just overall just amazing cakes and desserts. They are from when Susie was a little girl. Her grandmother had these recipes that she made for Susie, and Susie wanted to create something from this. So she took this as an idea and a concept, and she made it something truly special as a successful business that's, like I said, growing. Susie shares her insights with us, how she did it, taking that idea and making it a reality, how she raised money, the trials and tribulations that come with being a new business owner, dealing with COVID, the pandemic, how she was able to survive. This is a really great podcast for anyone who is looking to start a new business, who has an idea, who has a concept, but just doesn't have that inspiration or having that self-doubt. This would be a podcast for you to listen to. Susie also won Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award in Greater Los Angeles, and she now serves as a judge for that event. She is a great lady, and I'm just so happy to have shared this talk with you. Enjoy. All right, you guys, today on Habits and Hustle, we have a friend of mine, actually, which I'm really excited about. Her name is, it's going to sound funny, Sarich, right?
Sarich, yeah.
I've never said your last name until like 5 seconds ago. And Susie is the one and only woman who's she's the Susie in SusieCakes. And for those of you who don't know what SusieCakes is, because it's mostly a California and Texas brand, it is one of the most popular dessert chains that I've ever seen. I mean, people are insanely crazy over this place here. And I am really, really happy to have you. So thank you for coming on Habits and Hustle.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh gosh, I'm excited to have you. Susie also, because you run a small business, and we're kind of, I don't know if we're like kind of getting out of a pandemic, we're kind of in a pandemic. I think it kind of changes every day. I really wanted to get a sense from you of how was it to be running and dealing with a small business in this time? Because I think that a lot of people obviously are struggling. How did you kind of make your way through?
Yeah. Navigate through it. It's been the hardest 18 months since starting the company 15 years ago, because every day is a new challenge. And just when you think you got it down pat, there's another change in a law or regulation, or how the team is feeling about coming to work, or about how people are feeling about coming to the bakery. So the last 18 months has been really hard. And what we had to do as an organization was figure out, how can we operate in this new world? So we changed our entire business model. And how can we operate in this new world with far less people who are working right now?
Right. And I want to get more into that afterwards, but I wanted to kind of talk about that right off the bat, because I think that that's what everyone seems to be dealing with, especially if you're an entrepreneur and if you have a small business and you're trying to survive. We all seem to have to pivot and struggle in some way. And like I said, I wanted to kind of bring that up right off the bat. But I guess we should first start with, how did you even come up with why? Why SusieCakes?
Yeah. Okay. This is my favorite part. So I grew up in Chicago, and my two grandmothers are Mildred and Madeline, and they lived across the alley from each other. That's how my parents met each other.
Okay.
And my dad was a firefighter. So I spent a lot of time at both of my grandma's houses, because he was working these 24-hour shifts.
Wow. Yeah.
And I became very close with both of them. Mildred was from Poland. Madeline was from Italy. So they were first generation. And their whole essence was about, we came to this country for a better life, and you can do anything you want. I mean, it was like my earliest memories were, you can do anything. Right. And I would come home from school or just go to their house on the weekends, and there would be this like amazing pound cake or cherry pie or oatmeal cookies. I mean, you name it. And it was like there when I came home, and we would literally sit at the table like this from at kindergarten, right? And just, and they'd say, what'd you learn today? And were you nice to people? And what would you do differently? And they were teaching me morals and values. And I didn't know it at the time, of course. I was just like happy to eat the cookie or the pie. But, really strong, stoic women. And so they were great bakers. And so later in life, I inherited their recipes. So that's part one of the story.
Okay.
Part two is that I always, I knew that hospitality was, my calling or my purpose from when I was young. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about the baking piece, but about the connection that baking brings people together, brings people joy, it brings them together. And so from a young age, we didn't have a lot of money. We would vacation in Wisconsin at the Holiday Inn that had the pool in the parking lot with the chain link fence.
I totally
if anybody knows what that is, when I say that, sometimes people get this look
exactly.
like, what is the pool in the parking lot? So
and that was like a vacation spot.
It was a total vacation spot. And so, but I would save the shampoo and the soap, the amenities, and then when my girlfriends came over for sleepovers, I'd make an amenity, right? Like, so I was very like hospitable, right? Like
domestic,
that was like,
I feel is the word, right?
Yeah, or domestic, and just wanting people to feel at home when they were with me, right? Whatever that meant. And so fast forward, I wanted to go to college for hospitality. And I was fortunate enough to get into Cornell, which was a really big deal for my family to be the first person to go to college. And then Cornell. Yeah. And so I took what I did very seriously and I felt so fortunate to be there. And I loved my classes and I loved college and it was really the business of hospitality. And so it was like an undergraduate degree.
They have hospitality at Cornell?
Yeah. So the whole school, it's hotel administration. And so, but within that, it's HR, it's marketing, it's design and development, culinary, every aspect that goes into a restaurant or a hotel.
Wait, where else did you apply?
There was no other, that's like the top school for it.
And so that's the only place that you applied?
Well, there's other schools for it, but that's...
No, but did you only, like did you only apply there because that was your goal?
No, I applied to other schools and I was hopeful that I would get in.
Oh, and you got it.
And I got in, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then when I graduated, I was very intentional about, I want my career path to be working for companies that still have a founder who's running it, that have a deep value system and culture. Right. So I didn't know I wanted to open SusieCakes at the time. It was more about, what do I want to learn right now? Because at 21, I didn't think I knew everything. I actually thought I needed to learn stuff. And I'm very glad I did, because I think that's part of my journey was getting experience. Right. And so I worked for Hyatt Hotels in Chicago when the Pritzker family was still running it back in the 90s. I worked for Let Us Entertain You Enterprises, which is Richard Melman. He's like a restaurant icon in Chicago. I worked for Ian Traeger Hotels at the Clift Hotel in San Francisco. And so,
what were you doing for them though? What was your
jobs? I was doing
catering,
restaurant management, catering sales. So always front of the house. It was I was not in the kitchen.
So when you say front of the house, explain that. So people who don't understand like hospitality.
That means not in the kitchen cooking or baking, but where the guest interfacing.
So you're just kind of like customer, like kind of like client relations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether it was planning somebody's wedding or, seating people on New Year's Eve in the ballroom, anything like that, because I like people, right? And
you sure do.
And I am, I'm extroverted, and like that is, kind of again what the piece that brings me joy. And then also worked for House of Blues and Isaac Tigret, who started Studio 59. And so when he had that's Ian Traeger.
That's okay.
In Traeger. Okay.
So you worked for all these people, though. You had a ton of great experience. You had like Ian Schrager, Richard Melman. What did Richard Melman own, though? What were his restaurants?
Let Us Entertain You. He's got like 40 restaurants in Chicago. He is.
Is he still a huge restaurateur?
He is still the guy in Chicago.
And you always just did front of the house stuff. Is that the terminology?
Yes.
Front of the house.
Okay. Is terminology.
And so would you kind of be doing also sales? Like were you kind of?
I did sales as well for some of these things. Like at House of Blues in Chicago, I was in charge of events. And so at the House of Blues there, we were doing everything from Oprah's Christmas party for Harpo Studios to like a private party with, Aretha Franklin, right? And everything in between.
Wow. So you've kind of like done the gamut.
Yeah. So I did the gamut from fine dining. I worked at a mobile 5-star French restaurant, again in the front,
right?
Catering sales. So I learned what it's like to,
but never making food.
Yeah, but never,
never baking, never cooking, never baking. In the kitchen,
never in the kitchen. So between that, the nightclub, the hotels, like I felt like I had this really great rounded experience. So around the age of 30, I saw a lot of my friends leave the business, especially females, because it was really hard to have a career in hospitality and then have a family, right? Or at least alone, I always say like a date. Like I never dated because I was like, I'm working.
Because the hours are crazy.
Yeah, the hours are crazy. You're there until, sometimes the wee hours in the morning if you're closing the bar or the restaurant. You're working every single New Year's Eve, every holiday. Every holiday.
Yeah.
Every holiday is when people are, out dining out. So I was just like, wow, there's like so many of these really smart women who love hospitality, but just can't deal with this 50, 60, 70 hour week thing that it requires.
And crazy.
And leaving.
And not like in the daytime. You're like working into the middle of the night.
Into the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like there were nights when I would like go home at 3:00 Saturday night and then have to be back for Sunday brunch at like 9 a.m.
Did you work that House of Blues brunch Sunday?
Yes, the gospel brunch.
Yeah, the gospel
brunch is so fun.
Oh my God.
So fun.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Do they still have it?
I think they do. Yeah, I think they do.
Okay.
It's so fun.
People love that thing.
They do.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah. It's a thing. And I just, and I reported every time, my general managers or food and beverage directors were always men, and that was fine. And they were great mentors and I learned a lot from everybody, but I was always like, God, this is so unusual.
Right.
And this is like late 90s, right? Like there's just no women really in upper management, least alone at like the VP and up level, or they were few and far between.
Exactly.
So that's when the wheels started turning a little bit and saying like, I would love to build a business model around women having careers in food service and hospitality without having to work on New Year's Eve and Christmas Day and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Like how do we do that and not be open 24/7 and close at a reasonable hour so somebody could go out to dinner with their spouse or put their kids to bed that was kind of the one piece of it. Right. And then the other piece was I really wanted to honor the women of all of our grandmother's generation, right? That greatest generation who dedicated their lives to being here so we could be here so that you and I could have the freedoms and the careers that we have. Right. And they never once were like, woe is me. I don't have a career. All I got to do is cook and bake for people all day long. Right. They just did it.
They have the wherewithal.
They were just stoic and like, this is what we do. And I think that honoring them and really that whole, all the grandmas and the generation of grandmas, right? Like what a great way to honor those women.
Right.
By creating a company where women of our generation and our age can have careers without having to sacrifice, family and other things.
So that was kind of part of your like mission statement already. Like you were kind of very forward thinking because that wasn't what people were thinking back then. Because it wasn't even, there was no role model to even, you had to be kind of pioneer this entire ideology.
Yes.
So then how did it go from this concept into an actual business then? So
I wrote a business plan, which I don't think a lot of people do. And when people say, what should I do? I say, write a business plan, because it's really important to say, this is what I stand for. This is what my business will be. Right. And this financially is how I will get there. Because I think a lot of people underestimate how much money you actually need to start a business once you take into account insurance and attorneys and
All
that stuff.
But you didn't have a finance background, so how did you do your business plan?
Yeah.
Did you have someone help you?
Well,
or?
I did have not finance it's not my forte, trust me, but it definitely
You learned some of it.
I learned it. We took finance in school, in college, but I literally did it, Jen. It was so rudimentary. It was like, okay, I think on a Saturday I can sell 800 cupcakes. You're gonna say, where'd you get that number? Right.
Right.
Like I would go to different bakeries. I took like 6 months to travel and go to different bakeries in different cities around the country and just sit outside sometimes and count cars, see what people were buying. Like, okay, Monday is a slow day, Saturday is a peak day. I kind of learned the business from observation and also had this little notebook that said like things I want to do when I open my company and things I don't want to do. So I'd be like going to a place and I'd be like, oh, I love that they sell birthday candles. I hate that their sign has neon lights on it, like whatever that was. Right.
That's great.
So that I was
So
starting, I'm like super detail oriented on that. Everything has to be like exactly right to make this work.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure I understand. So you wanted to honor all of these real non-negotiables for you for a business, but where did the idea come from where I'm going to take my grandmother's recipes and create a bakery? Like where did that, where was the connection?
It's a great question. Okay. So there was a huge aha moment. I was living in San Francisco and I moved around a lot for my career and I was unpacking a box and I had the little tin boxes of 3x5 handwritten recipe cards. Right. And I kept saying like, okay, I inherited these. Like I'm never going to make this stuff at home for myself because I'm never home because I'm working.
Right.
But
the chicken or the egg.
But at that time, this was like in the early 2000s. This is when, if you remember, when desserts were like super deconstructed and silly. You'd go into a restaurant, and I always my greatest example is the pineapple upside down cake. Like the pineapple should be part of the cake, but it was like cake, pineapple, and caramel sauce. I'm like, this is not pineapple upside down. It was like some dehydrated pineapple on the top, like to add insult to injury. So,
right.
So it was like everything was super complicated. And I think people, I'd go to a restaurant and be like, oh my gosh, can we just have a piece of chocolate cake with chocolate frosting? Nobody wants this.
Yeah.
Nobody wants rose oil in their,
exactly.
whatever, in their 7-layer bar, right? Like, so it's like people were overcomplicating desserts. And so it was kind of like, wow, if we could just get back to simplicity and like desserts from the Midwest that I grew up with that had 5 ingredients, butter, flour, sugar, eggs, vanilla, maybe 1 or 2 other things, right?
Right.
Also at this time, Jen, if you remember, early 2000s was when nutritional labeling came out and was required by the government. So you go into a grocery store and there'd be chocolate chip cookies and one of those awful clamshell things, right? With the label on it. And you'd go, what is all this stuff? Why are there 85 things in my chocolate chip cookie? Like, this is wrong.
Right.
And so I think consumers were starting to get smarter about, I don't want to buy the cookies from the grocery store because they're not made like I make them at home or my grandma makes them or whatnot. So those two things kind of converged along with having these recipes. And then it was like, bingo, this is the plan. This is the business. Like, I need to bring really good Midwest desserts to people in California because they do not know what good desserts should taste like. Like, that's really what I felt my mission was.
And then how many recipes did you even kind of inherit? I mean,
oh my God, boxes and boxes. Like boxes and boxes and boxes. And so
were they baking all the time?
They were baking all the time. We also had all the ethnic stuff, like the Polish kolaczkis and the Italian cannolis. So I have all those recipes.
So it's not just bakery goods you have. You have like everything.
Yeah. So, but I was focused on, what I thought was kind of missing in the marketplace. And then as
like a hole in
to
the
my friends, it's like,
marketplace.
where do you go for cakes? And there was like, you can go to these super high-end wedding cake places to spend $8,000 on a cake that's made with fondant that nobody eats.
What's fondant?
It's that's really smooth. It tastes like, I think it tastes a little pasty. It's like you could peel it in a sheet off of a cake.
Kind of, but you're such a connoisseur now.
Yeah.
I'm not. I probably don't know. I don't know the difference at all.
It's fancy. But it's fancy. It's like marzipan. It's fancy.
Yes.
Right?
What's I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know.
And so there was that, and then there was grocery stores, and then there were sometimes like mom and poppy bakeries, but not generally someplace that was like, yes, I've got to go here to get a birthday cake. Right. It just, there wasn't really, whether it was San Francisco or LA, it kind of like wasn't what I had visioned what SusieCakes is now today. That just didn't really exist.
It didn't exist.
Yeah. So I put together this business plan. And then my next goal was to start to raise money.
But wait a second, before you even get to the raising of the money, I got one more question. Did you do some kind of like market research as to, did you just kind of, because you didn't really see this type of thing?
Yeah.
Or did you have any way of kind of really seeing, like, did you have another kind of more organized way of knowing what kind of like competition there was?
Yeah.
Did you have that? Or that was just more like, I don't see it. Did other people fail before you? Did you see any of that stuff?
I didn't see anyone doing what I wanted to do,
Ever.
which gave me, it encouraged me to say, this is something that has not been done prior.
Right. Okay.
And the concept is also about that baking on site. You know how in the bakeries, the kitchen is open with glass, right?
Well, I think some people don't know.
Yeah.
So the whole concept, you can see people actually baking the goods.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have a central commissary that sends out baked goods to all 26 locations. Like people are baking in each location.
Yeah.
With the frosting
recipe.
the cupcakes with their hands, right? Like these are people making baked goods. And I wanted to keep the kitchen open because I want people to see, like, look, it's butter. Like, look, it's chocolate chips. Like these are like, this is what we're doing at SusieCakes, and I'm proud of it.
Right.
And I want them to see the cake decorators, painstakingly,
doing their work.
Yeah. And so the kitchens are open intentionally. And there's a lot of bakeries that you can't see. Like that was one of the reasons I wanted the kitchen exposed. So most bakeries, you don't see the kitchen.
Right.
Which makes me think,
what are they doing in the kitchen?
What is going on in that kitchen?
Exactly.
Right?
What are they doing in the kitchen?
Going in there? Yeah.
Because, so then you get your business plan together.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to put the business plan together?
About 6 months.
Yeah. Okay.
About 6 months. Yeah.
And then
that was
what?
part of the research and
all
traveling and things of that nature. And then it was like, okay, I figured you just go to the SBA and you get a loan. Like that's how naive I was. And so I went to the SBA and I had a really, I had experience, I had education, and I had a relevant business plan. And there were like these men sitting around the table and they said, Susie, baking is a hobby. It's not a business. You should stick to hotels. You've had a really successful career. I was like, I can't, like, what just happened?
That's what they said to you?
I was like, wait, this is the SBA. Your whole role is to help people start small businesses.
Yeah.
Right? Like encourage them. And they did not think it was a good idea. So then I'm like, okay, well, whatever. The SBA doesn't know anything, right? They're antiquated.
Yeah.
Move on and just go to a bank. So I started going to banks, and every single bank told me SusieCakes was a bad idea. Every banker, bad idea. This doesn't have legs. People in California don't eat sweets. People are health conscious. And I kept saying, no, people have to celebrate life's moments. You don't have an anniversary party without a cake. You don't have a graduation party without a cake. Like so everybody buys cake. It doesn't matter. So why not give people who are health conscious the best cake possible? So if you're going to eat cake, eat a cake that you at least know has eggs in it, right? Like eat real food, right? If you're going to have an indulgence. So I was like, I knew it could work, but Jen, everybody thought it was a bad idea. The only people who really encouraged me were my parents. And after the fact, they told me that they were a little bit concerned it might fail, but they felt I needed to see it through or I would have regrets the rest of my life. So even they doubted. And then my partner, Houston, who's just, been by my side this whole time. And he kind of the same thing. He's like, you have to do like whatever we have to do to make this happen for you. And whatever happens after that, it's fine. But you have so much passion around this business and conviction. And I don't know if it's like your grandmother's like channeling, and giving you strength to carry on when everybody's saying it's a bad idea. And so I think for people, when they start businesses, I always say like, have one person who's like your person to say, you can do this. Right. Because there's dark days. And when everybody's saying it's a bad idea, sometimes you think, am I the crazy one? But you have to have somebody be like, no, you're okay.
And you had Houston to be your champion and to support you. So what made you be so resilient? Like what was like after the fifth bank
20 plus banks.
And 20 plus banks turned you down. How much were you asking for?
It was not a lot. I want to say like 150,000.
That's all you were asking for? And every single bank turned you down?
Yeah.
So at that point, I guess you couldn't go to friends and family because you said your family had no money, right? Like,
well, that's what I had to pivot. That was my only option.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just saying like, oh, hey, can someone write me this big check? I was like, okay, I've got to like say, Jen,
Yes.
Can you give me $2,500
Right.
or $5,000? You own one,
Yeah.
90%
Exactly.
of SusieCakes. And I would carry, I had like copies of my business plan. And no matter where I went, like I tell my dental hygienist or like talking to my dental hygienist, she's like, my cousin in Palm Springs, he has a little money. I'm like, give him this, like I would pass the thing out to anybody who would talk to me, like literally.
And you were not getting discouraged. You were not like, how did you maintain your spirit and your belief in yourself?
I don't know, Jen, it came from within. It was just conviction around the idea, or stubbornness,
right.
or, wanting to prove this, or really thinking that this could ultimately bring so many great careers to women and just so much joy to people. Right. Like this.
Who doesn't like cake?
Who doesn't like cake? Right.
Yeah.
So it was.
And by the way, she has this amazing thing called the 7-layer bar, and it is amazing. Okay, sorry, I have to put that in there.
We do. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a plug for. We do more than cake.
Yeah,
we
do more
pies,
than cake.
We do great pies.
And there's lineups constantly. I mean, I have to just kind of like interject that.
Okay,
that's good. Continue. Because the resilience that's necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just after fifth or sixth or seventh of time you're being rejected. It's like rejection.
Yeah.
How did you kind of pick yourself up by the bootstraps and be like, all right, let's go to bank number 14. I mean, it's not. It's not very
easy.
hard.
It's not easy.
And you had Houston to help you.
Yeah. But I think it made me just more like, the more people said no, the more I like doubled down.
Right.
Like they don't know what they're talking about. Now they really don't know what they're talking about. And I'm going to show everybody. It was almost like wanting to prove that I could do it at that point in time.
Yeah.
Because it was making me angry, because I felt like I'm competent, and it's not like I'm whatever, an accountant who's like, oh, I'm going to go bake cupcakes. It was like very, very, very different.
Do you really believe that every single one of those people were really kind of not into the idea? Or do you think it was because if you're also a woman at that time, 20 years ago?
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
Right.
It was different.
It was different.
It was very different.
Do you think it was a kind of a combination of a lot of different reasons?
I do.
And so then you had to kind of figure out the next, so you had to kind of like think out of the box or think of the next thing. Yeah. And you thought, okay, family and friends. And so you're basically like going around, and you kind of cobbled together how much? 150?
Cobbled together. And that was like exactly.
By who? Who gave you the money?
It was my uncle. Well, I remember my uncle Tony wrote the first check for $5,000. I remember him giving it to us, and I was just crying because I'm like, and he said, I believe in you. He's like, I remember what he said exactly. He's no longer with us. He said, I'm betting on the jockey, not on the horse. He's like, I'm betting on the jockey, and this jockey is going to win. And he said that to me. That's Italian, for gambling.
100%. I know.
That's my Italian background. Chicago. He gave the gold pinky ring. He's classic, and like that, I'll never forget that, because it's like, again, it goes back to that one person who tells you can do it, and that was like everything. And then once I had that, then I could start saying, oh, people have already invested, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's my Uncle Tony, but people have already invested. A lot of people. You want to get in on this deal now because this is going fast.
This is where your Italian, spirit comes.
Yeah.
So then now you have $5,000. You can't do much with $5,000. So where did the other 145 come from?
It came from small amounts from family and friends of friends, right? So there was like this pretty extensive network. Some people who I didn't even know.
No, okay.
Who because people like to be in food service. Generally, they think it's fun. They like it more if they know what the concept is, versus like,
or they like cake.
Or they like cake.
Yeah.
And so we also were able to, and this is like where karma in life comes into play. We had a friend who, my mom also took a second mortgage out on her home for us. And we had a friend who, Houston, my partner, had helped open restaurants previous, and he felt like he needed to kind of pay it forward. So he took out also a loan on his house for us. And so that actually made the whole thing way more real for me, right? Because it's like now it's people's livelihoods, that are, or their home or whatnot. And so that's how we got the money together. And then it became the next big hurdle to overcome was like finding a landlord who would rent to me, because it's an unknown concept. Is like people, landlords are like, no, I could put a Starbucks in here, Jamba Juice. Why in the world would I give it to Susie? Right? Like, who is Susie? Like,
did you name it SusieCakes too?
I named it SusieCakes. Yeah,
so
and that was and that's my grandma's called me Susie when I was younger, and it was just kind of like all-American name for the all-American bakery. So that came, my next thing was like finding a landlord and finding a space. And so I knew we wanted, and one thing we did learn in our real estate classes was location, location, location. And I knew I had to find for the first one the best location possible. It needed to be a neighborhood with families and kids and dogs and strollers and soccer camps and ballet schools and all of those things, right?
Right.
And we were living in San Francisco at the time. We didn't come down to LA until we couldn't find anything in San Francisco because the laws were such that we were zoned as fast food because we baked on site and we didn't have chairs. So we baked on site and we didn't have seating. So they compared us to like a 24-hour drive-through Taco Bell where people were doing unsavory things in the parking lot. We're like this Disney-esque bakery, right?
Yeah.
So the neighborhoods we wanted to be in, whether it was Pacific Heights or Laurel Village or any, the marina, we were zoned. They wouldn't even the city wouldn't even look at SusieCakes. So then that's when it's like, okay, well, let's try this in LA where there's 8 million people. It's a bigger market, and figure it out. But I had never even been here.
So the first location was in LA.
Yes. Was a Brentwood location.
It was a Brentwood location. Yeah. And so Brentwood was like a really expensive neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So that must have been crazy rent for
It was crazy rent. And the landlord, when we had seen the spot, I said, this is it. Like I got like, this is the spot. Like, 'cause we looked at all different areas, right. Santa Monica, Studio City, Hancock Park. When I saw the place in Brentwood, I'm like, this is where it needs to be. It was a bike shop. Right. It's like this bike shop. So it had to be converted to food service.
I totally remember.
Cheap. And so I was like, it has to be here. So I had a meeting with the landlord and he was kind of like, you seem like a nice gal.
A nice lady.
A nice lady.
Yeah.
But no, like, this is prime real estate in Brentwood. Like, I'm not going to rent you. So I made him cupcakes, cookies, pies. I would go to his offices on Wilshire, near the bakery. We lived in West Hollywood at the time. I would go to his office with baked goods and I knew what time he would come in and he was so funny. I'm like, Michael, hi. And he's like, hey, Susie. He's like, again, you can bring me all the baked goods in the world, but like, it's not happening. And I was so persistent that what happened was, I don't even know how many weeks it was after that he called me I can't remember this part, but it was his wife and his daughter who said, if this woman has this much conviction around getting the space, imagine how hard she'll work her business.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that is how I got the space. But that was like that was like the second, like, oh my God.
But that was perseverance and tenacity right there. So you had to really kind of have these qualities. Like, are those like natural qualities that you already have, like tenacity, persistence, resilience, or was it because you were so passionate about this one idea that it kind of came from within?
I think it was taught to me as a young girl. Yeah. I think my grandmothers were teaching me that, right. Like setting me up for my life, but I didn't know it at the time.
Well, how were they doing that? By sitting you down?
Just like, it was kind of like you can do anything. Don't let people tell you no. Stay true to what you know is,
so they were
the right
saying
thing.
This to you while you were sitting down having your bakery goods.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, for me, all those life lessons are like, I can't look at a piece of cake without thinking of all of those things that they taught me. So I owe it to both of them. I really do.
So it's interesting because right now, a lot of people talk about like how their childhood experiences or their trauma sometimes or whatever that is really do play a major role in like how their adult life happens. And because you were taught very young about perseverance and not taking no for an answer, that kind of has like stayed with you for your success. Yes. Basically, it's kind of created your success or helped you, with your success. Yeah. Which is, I think this is amazing. Yeah. So again, that's why it's so important to be surrounded by people who are, they say, was it the 5 people closest to you are the people that you are going to become or resemble the most? Okay, so now you have this location. Yeah. Now the question is, what do you do now? You don't know how to do it. You've never done a bakery. Exactly. So what do you do?
So we designed, I from all my bakery visits at different bakeries and just kind of knowing the industry of designed the plan and worked with an architect. But again, I knew what I wanted,
Right.
generally speaking, that I wanted it to be, it should have like retro touches. It should look old fashioned, but modern and
The
contemporary.
branding's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing I noticed. It
Yeah.
looks like it's like so on, like on target, on point. Did you do the
Thank
branding?
you. Yeah, I did the branding. I mean, I had a graphics designer I worked with, but we were like developing Susie, and it was like, does she have pearls? Take the pearls off. Are her heel? Does she have high heels? Low heels? Like, what does her dress look like? Does she have an apron? Does it go out? Like, I thought he was going to fire me. He's like, he's like, I'm like, no, but it has to be perfect. Like, your logo has to be perfect, right? That somebody sees it and they know exactly what it's going to be, right? Because I wanted Susie to be, my goal is for Susie to be like the Nike swoosh. Like, people should see SusieCakes and just know it's SusieCakes, right? So I was super particular about that. The blue is called Susie Blue, but it was my grandmother's Pyrex mixing bowl colors. So if you remember from back in the day, they were colored on the outside, white on the inside.
Yeah. I do.
And
I have those actually.
Yeah, and they're so special. So that's where the Susie Blue came from. And then the Susie, the logo is that red is a 69 Mustang, which called Cherry Red. And so it's like a little bit of a retro red, but that's where the inspiration came from that. And red is a little bit of a nod to red, white, and blue of kind of the Americana piece of SusieCakes. So that was all thought out. So we designed it, and then I had to find a contractor. That was a whole nother situation because we were, on a shoestring budget, and finally got a contractor. It took an extremely long time to build out, and everything that could have gone wrong could have. The city wanted us to put in a 25,000 gallon grease interceptor, which is about the size of a Volkswagen Bug, even though we don't have grease, right?
Oh my
And you had to
gosh.
build that into the ground. And so I fought the city on this. I went to the city council and like, okay, we don't have grease. Like, we're not a donut shop, or like, we're not frying anything. But it was just like, the law is that if you have food service, you have to have this grease trap interceptor thing.
So how did you even not burn through the 150?
We did. And so then it came to the dark moment.
Oh,
this is the low moment.
And here
this
goes.
is the moment where it's like, okay, this is not happening, right? Like, now I was feeling like the universe was maybe starting to give me signs. We had the grease interceptor thing. We had this water line that was 1/18 of an inch too small, and they had to saw cut this. And my contractor was like, that's going to be another $35,000 to do that. I'm like, I don't have it. Like, we don't have it. And that is when Houston, who's my rock in life, he sold his car to get that last amount of money. And I don't want to be like all jewel. We weren't living in a car, but we had 2 cars, and he sold the car. And it was a really sentimental car to him because he had gotten some money when his dad passed, and his dad said, spend it on something that will mean the world to you. And so he said, I'm going to sell this car because there's nothing more important than you doing this. So I
didn't know that story.
Yeah.
What kind of car did he buy?
It was a Porsche Boxster.
So he sold his Porsche Boxster to give you the money to do. I know it sounds like
I know it was.
River,
I know,
but
because it was money from his dad's,
100%.
passing. It was a sentimental thing.
100%. It's very sentimental.
Yeah.
And he sold his car to give you the money so you can have your dream.
And that's it. And that was it. Then that was the money, and we got all this crazy stuff done, and now we had to open.
And so what happened? And then what happened? I feel like I'm watching a movie. And then what happened?
I know. I always say this could be Lifetime miniseries.
Yeah, right?
I kind of feel like it's
yeah.
Then I hired a few people. Like, we didn't know what we were going to do, so I just hired a few people. I hired an amazing executive baker, right? Because I know I'm not the person to be in the kitchen baking. I knew that was not my skill set.
Start.
Yeah, my skill set.
Do you know how to bake anything though? Like, do you know how to make the cake if you have to?
If I had to, yeah.
Like in a pinch. Or not.
Ish.
Because, funnily enough, Houston is an amazing chef and cook.
Yes.
I mean, we had dinner a little while ago, and Houston made the most phenomenal dinner. So I was thinking, worst case scenario, Houston could be the chef. You know what I mean? He can make the cake. Easy. Why not?
Yeah.
Because so you're more the idea person, the people person.
Yeah.
literally the front end person.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what to do with the back end.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So then you hire this
So
executive chef.
like, so I'm also a believer in like hire people who do things better than you
Yes.
and let them do things better than you do. Right. And I always say that, like, if baking was the piece that was passion for me versus the connection and celebration about baking, I would have been in the kitchen with my head down baking, right? But I was out front being like, Jen, tell me about your kid's school. Oh, working the neighborhood, like in Brentwood, all those Italian restaurants. I'd go bring, cupcakes at the end of the night and say, give them to your guests. Like my marketing, we had no money.
You
right?
were like a real hustler. You
So
really
I
were.
was,
You were like working it.
And because like, again,
Susie,
we had no money for anything. And then like there was always traffic on San Sunday. So at the end of the day, like I'd have a tray where the traffic was stopped and I'd go out to cars and knock on windows. And people were like, what is like, no, I don't want it. I'm not selling it. I just want you to try it. This is my bakery. Like people are like, okay, crazy lady. Right. And I kept thinking like someday the news needs to come and like see Susie, out there with the tray. But I had to work it because you can't just open the door and hope people come in. It's like you have to build the brand. And so all of our marketing was through, I want to give back to the community that we're going to be part of for a long time. And so it was through donations, right? Like that, what could I do? I don't have money, but I have cupcakes. I've got product so that if you're having, when everything from the black tie lupus event at the Four Seasons to the local Girl Scout troop. And I said, yes, yes, yes. Anybody who said yes, it was like, I'm going to give this to you because I know if you take these 24 cupcakes to the PTA meeting, there's going to be 24 parents who go, where'd you get these? They're amazing. Yeah. Like I had so much confidence in the quality of the product that I knew if I just got it into people's homes that we would be in their homes for a long time.
So I have a bunch of questions. My first question is, when you were dealing with the restaurants, were you telling them also to give it to the restaurant, like their patrons or guests,
yes,
as dessert? But you weren't charging the restaurant.
No,
you were just giving
it was just giving it to them.
So you were giving them like very high quality product for them to kind of share with their guests. What I was going to say, what I find very interesting is you really haven't changed that much, because when my kids were having things at their school, you were giving me.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember you gave me like
all that stuff for
tons of stuff for the school stuff, and it's clever. Like I understand it's opportunistic, but at the same time, but it's also coming from a good place, but it's smart. It's like, here, take this stuff, and all of those mothers, all of those people, all of the people in that community are going to get to know your product. So like, you're not very short-sighted at all. You always were very like, you always saw beyond the short gain, right? And obviously it worked to your advantage, right? Because all of those people now are
fanatical,
are like fans. Like, literally, I don't know the proper word, like who are like diehards.
Yeah, we call them, Susie loyals. Like, we call them.
Is that what you call them? Because even Dimitri over there, I mean, everybody. When I posted that little thing, on you with Instagram, I could not believe the response of people like, oh my God, I love it. I love that. Carrot cake's the best carrot cake, or the flowers.
Why though? Because it's an emotional connection.
100%.
It brings people back somewhere else to a happier, simpler time. I'm convinced of that.
No, you're right.
So, or when you're at somebody's wedding, they'll be like, "Oh my God, we had you at our wedding, and first at an engagement party, then a wedding, then they have the gender reveal party, then they have the baby's first birthday party, then we're in somebody's home, and it's like, well, it's Susie, right?
Yeah.
Like
you're like a family member.
Yeah, we get our pumpkin pie every Thanksgiving, right?
No, you get like, it's part of
it becomes a thing.
It's a ritual. It becomes part of someone's ritual.
It's their habits.
It's their habits and their ritual and their routine. Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you, and I always ask people this question, like, what makes your product or whatever unique? But I think it kind of stays, kind of like stands for itself with this, right? Because it does, like that first bite or whatever that has, it brings them back to that really good memory, or that time they, that the wedding or the bar mitzvah or the party, or when they were a kid and their grandmother made
like something,
right? Because those 7-layer bars that I love, it reminds me of what my mom and my grandmother made me when I was a little girl. And I haven't had them like that since, until I had them I think when you gave them to me like a year ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. So that's great. So then let's say kind of fast forward. And how do you take a business that you have now you have one location.
Right,
How do you take that and then scale it?
Okay. So great question again. I had opened the first location with standard operating procedures for everything, knowing I wanted more than one bakery. So my goal wasn't like, let me just open one bakery in Brownwood. It was like, let me bring these recipes in this little tin box to the whole country. Everybody needs to try these.
Right.
People need to connect more. They need to celebrate more. This is what I need to do. And so I started, we had a way for answering the phone. I mean, I had an intern from Cornell and like 2 other part-time people. And I was like, so we answer the phone. This is the procedure. Thank you for calling Susie. They're like, why can't we just say hello? Like I had a ritual for everything, right? Like, so it was very specific. This is what the case looks like every day. The strawberry cupcakes are always here. The chocolate are here, right? Like, because I wanted to duplicate SusieCakes.
Right.
So I thought, I'm not going to recreate the wheel when we open location number 2, because I had this conviction that we were going to get a second location. And
how did you know how to do that? Did you learn that in school?
I did. Yeah, I learned that, and that through my career, right? Okay. So, through the different companies I worked for, that I knew that having the SOPs for everything and checklists for opening the bakery and
give me some of the standard operating procedures that you thought really kind of help bring you to the map, like put you on the map.
Yeah. So one of the things we did in the early days until COVID was we would call every guest back who ordered a cake to see how their cake was. This was not my original idea. This is Danny Meyer out of New York. He wrote a book, Setting the Table. And he said when he opened his first restaurant, that every morning he would close the office door to the manager's office and call all the reservations back from the day before and ask how their dinner was. And if something was wrong, he'd fix it in the moment. And when I read that in that book, I'm like, this is absolutely brilliant, because with scratch baking, stuff can happen. It could be underbaked or overbaked or too much salt. I mean, whatever, it's human people doing stuff, right? So it could happen. But I'd rather call you and I say, Jen, how was the red velvet cake? And you know what, Susie? It actually wasn't that good. And I'll say, I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to refund you, and I'm going to send you a gift card for your next celebration, because I know we didn't deliver on that. And so what are you going to tell people? It's not like you're going to go tell everybody that the cake was dry, or you might say the cake was bad, but look what they did for me.
100%.
And so I was like, we just have to, again, it comes back to trust, right? Because people are trusting you with their milestone moments in their lives, and they have to believe that you're going to be able to deliver. And they're not going to show up to SusieCakes on a Saturday morning and the cake's not going to be there.
Exactly,
right?
Which happened to me.
Which happens, actually.
It happens all the time.
Yeah,
not to you. It happened to me at Baskin Robbins 3 times. Yeah. Sorry, Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
But, I've ordered cakes and they're not there.
So that's,
ice cream cake.
Yeah,
only ice cream cake for my kids, so don't take it personally, Susie. I don't want you to be offended. I'm only going because mocha almond fudge. Sorry.
It's okay. That's okay. I can support Baskin Robbins.
Thank you.
I like that.
It's ice cream. It's not cake. I get the pie, not the cake. Gotta make sure it's. Got nervous there. I was gonna insult you.
I'm like, what do you mean? I'm going to Baskin Robbins. What's happening?
You're gonna walk out on me pretty soon.
So that's one standard operating procedure. Greeting people when they come in the door was another. The welcome to SusieCakes, offering a sample, like all of those things, kind of building an experience so that people would want to be there. They would feel like welcomed into SusieCakes.
Absolutely.
Like, yes, it's a business selling cakes, but you're part of it. And one of our values is making days better. And so like, how does Jen come in and maybe she's like late to something or trying to pick up her kids or whatever. It's got a lot going on, as everybody does. But how do we make Jen's day better? Do we walk the stuff out to her car? She's double parked and we see the ticket guy coming. Like, how do we make people know we care about them?
But you said something about the cases, like it has to have a red cake here and a white. Is there like some kind of...
It needed to have order, right? And it needed to be like, I have the cupcakes on the bottom because kids like color, right? So that's closest to the kids, right? Like, so there's again, everything is super, super, super intentional. Nothing is by mistake. By mistake at SusieCakes. There's a why for literally everything. And
you came up with all of these whys?
Yeah.
I'm learning so much about you, Susie.
Yeah. So it was...
So all the cupcakes on the bottom, so the kids see the color.
Yeah.
I want one more.
You want another reason?
This is
about
very
where
interesting.
Stuff is at.
Yeah,
and
because this is how you build a brand.
Yeah, and then the top shelf closest to the point of sale is whatever's a seasonal coming up, so people order it. So maybe it'll be like now apple pie order for Rosh Hashanah, or order, whatever, football cookies for football season.
It's subliminal. Right? People are doing things very subliminally.
And it's very close. So when they're standing there waiting to pay, they're like, oh, this is the next holiday coming up. We should order our Halloween cookies now. So top shelf closest is a marketing for a future holiday.
Right. So the lesson here, everybody, is like always be strategic and like think ahead and be intentional with what you're doing and stay on brand. I think that's another big one.
Oh
right?
my gosh. Being true to what you are and who you do. Like, I admire In-N-Out Burger so much for just saying, we do burgers. We don't do fish sandwiches or chicken. So at SusieCakes, when people are like, do you make tiramisu? I'm like, no. Like, we are an all-American homestyle bakery. Like, tiramisu is an Italian dessert, right? I'm Italian, but this is not an Italian bakery, right? Or, you know, people who say, you know, they want, you know, the gluten-free items. And so I said, you know, we don't do that well. I don't have any recipes my grandma's made with rice flour, almond flour. And so it's like, if it wasn't in the pantry in 1950, we don't bake with it. Right. And so
the flourless
items, we just don't use flour in it, right? So those flourless chocolate cupcakes, they just don't have flour, but I'm not trying to use a substitute flour or substitute sweetener. Like, it's sugar.
Right. Which, by the way, by the way, like regular natural sugar has been shown and proven to be so much better for you anyway, and much more. It's just, it's cleaner.
Yeah, it's cleaner.
So then, okay, let's get back to the scaling of the business. So how do you then scale the business?
Okay. So then, right, 6 months in, we were doing really well. And people, you know, it's a wealthy area in Brentwood. People started saying, oh, I might kind of like this closer to my house in Malibu. Have you thought about Calabasas? Have you thought about Studio City? Now people were like into it, right? Because they could see it, right? Now you're in SusieCakes, see it, feel it, taste it, like you know what it is. So then I said, okay. Now, instead of going back and raising money for one more bakery, let's raise money for 3. Like I said, I don't want to keep doing this back to the well. So let's raise enough money where we can open something in Orange County and in the South Bay, in Manhattan Beach, and somewhere up in the valley.
Right.
Like this is where I think people sometimes get limited by, you know, I can't do it, or that's too much, or whatnot. But like I always say, like, think bigger than you think you have the capabilities for doing. And so for me, I was like, I'm not going to keep asking money every time I want to open a bakery. I want to do this fundraising thing once, raise enough for 3 bakeries. It actually mitigates the investor's risk because it's 3 bakeries in case Calabasas isn't great. Manhattan Beach will be, right? It's actually like a safer bet. You know, it's less risky from an investment standpoint. So at that point, it was
we'll
really
talk about that
easy.
a little bit. I think people are interested in that. So it's say that again. So it's less risky for someone to open up 3 locations than one more location. Correct. Because if one does badly, then you're screwed. But if you have another one that, you know, but maybe one will do badly, but there's a chance that the other one will do really well, and it would find its equilibrium. Right. Okay, that's an interesting point. All right. Go on.
It was far easier to raise money that round because we had proven financials. People could see it, feel it. The original investor group, almost everybody in that original group wrote checks again for the next 3 bakeries because they were already getting dividend checks.
So how much were you raising now for your second round?
This was a couple $100,000. I'd say, I can't remember exactly, maybe like 900,000.
So you went from a 150 to like $1 million-ish. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you raised the money from, again, you went now from other friends and family, but were you now institutional money yet?
No.
That's really small for institutional.
Yeah.
And then you started to, then built these 3.
Yeah, then we built the 3. And, you know, sequentially opened them. We would seed new bakeries. We still do this today with people who had been with the company a while so that they carry the culture and kind of the, you know, the Susie torch, if you will. And it was about 1 a year when we got those 4 open, and they were all doing extremely well. And then the naysayers came in again because I wanted to open in San Francisco, and people were like, oh, this works in LA, but it doesn't work in San Francisco. I'm like, oh my gosh, like really? Like I have 4 bakeries.
And they were all working well? Was there one that was kind of a dog?
No.
They were all doing well?
They were all doing well. So they were great locations.
They were So basically you really kind of stuck to the whole location. They were all doing well.
Yes.
And I should say, like, did it help that like you had like, it's such a celebrity favorite. I mean, maybe because you're living in LA, like everyone and their dog is like eating these cakes. Like I would go and like Ben Affleck would be in line and like Gwyneth Paltrow would be like driving up. Like it literally is like A-lister after A-lister. Did that kind of help build your brand? Were they promoting it for you?
Well, this was pre-social media. right?
Right, but you had Us,
but we did have
before
the tabloids,
right?
Yeah.
You had like Us Weeklies and whatever,
People,
like Life is People, Life is
and then it
Style.
said Stars, they're just like us. Like, so there was a lot of that in the bag is branded. So when they're walking out, it's clear that they were
and people are taking these pictures.
And people see that. So I think that absolutely helped.
Because I'm thinking of that brand that Oprah was all crazy for, the cupcake brand, Sparkies, not Sparkies. Sprinkles, yeah, Sprinkles. I couldn't remember the name of it. And like
I love it.
Sparky Sprinkles. You can tell I'm a huge dessert eater, although I do like your stuff. But, because of Oprah yammering on about it and it being in all the magazines.
Yeah, it imploded.
And that's with every single lot of brands.
Exploded.
I know you meant exploded.
Yeah.
But that's at the time, that's how a brand really got traction.
Yeah.
Those magazines were sometimes even more popular than what social media can be for some people.
Yeah.
So that helped building your brand and elevating it and kind of like making it like the hot, sexy thing to have.
Yeah.
So did you get a lot of people like tourists coming here who wanted to try it because they saw Gwyneth, I'm just making up, like J-Lo eating a piece of it. Like
we didn't actually. I think what more, because I would say like SusieCakes, it can be a snacky snack, but it's more of the cakes for your celebrations, right? So more people like buying whole cakes was more of our business model.
Not the cupcakes.
We had the cupcakes and sell quite a few of them, but it wasn't necessarily predicated on come buy one cupcake.
Right. And that was more like because you're really selling, or part of you're very strategic and very on point with your branding being the celebratory, a connection point, not just like stuff and ram down a cupcake in the back of your car, when you come here to try it, you know what I mean? So there's a whole different kind of selling feature there,
Yes.
But there's a big difference.
Yeah.
You see you can see these people like grabbing one and then stuffing it, when they're driving. It's not the same. You're not having that same type of, it's not the same type of experience. Okay. So then Then when did you get institutional money? So then these people were saying no again, and you were trying to build in San Francisco. Then how did you kind of?
So again, I was like, okay, well, we're just going to do this. There's no way this is not going to work in San Francisco. So went up to San Francisco, and I think we built out those 4 up there. Again, really similar.
So another 4.
Very similar.
But where'd you get the money for the next 4?
We were doing through cash flow at that point.
Oh, yeah. So you were self-funding
and self-funding. Maybe took a little bit of money for those 3 or 4, but not a lot.
How do you do that? So that's another. So there's friends and family. There's like private equity money, or you can also do cash flow where you're taking money.
Yeah, we're taking out of the business and putting it back in. Yeah.
And putting it back in by opening. So you were able to open 4 other locations just on cash flow.
Cash flow, and maybe a little bit of external money again through friends and family. Like that group just kept growing, and then it was very easy to go back to whoever and get another check.
So so you had 8 locations. So when did you even get institutional money?
At 8. So at 8 once. So I proven out San Francisco, because again, we hit home run there again, and the stores did extremely well. And so at that point, we had a pretty good concept that was proven. And so people couldn't say, well, now and then, of course, people are like, well, no, it doesn't go outside of California. But there's just always people who just want to break you down. And it is crazy to me.
It's amazing. Even though you had like a proven concept over and over and over again. Really,
that has actually been, I think, one of the most surprising things about running a business or owning a business or growing a business is that so many people just always want to find a way to say why it won't work again. It's just really odd to me. And it's like become my life's work to anybody who wants to open a business. I would never discourage somebody from opening a business ever. Even if it's not the greatest idea I've ever heard. I'm like, okay, here's how I might zhuzh this up a little bit, but you have to do this. You need to do this.
Well, I find it very interesting. I think it's a lot of times because people are so they're so filled with fear and doubt that they're for themselves that they're projecting it on someone else. Yeah. So then that's when you had to raise the money for. How much did you raise institutionally?
A lot.
Like a lot. Okay. Okay. And then that was for 4 more?
No. Then we went on a pretty heavy growth trajectory. Then once we had like some real, gas in the tank, then it was like, you don't have to open 1 every year. It was like, let's open 3 to 5 a year. Right.
So then we
started. Yeah. Okay. Then we started, that's where we went from 8 to get to this 26 that we're at now.
So what was the jump? It went from 8 to what? 8 to 26?
I think it was like, instead of one every year, it became like three a year.
And were they all hitting home runs over and over again?
No, we made some real estate misses.
Was this because you had partners now that you had people you had before?
It's a different game. It's a different game. It's a different game.
And I think a lot of people talk about this because you're not the only one in control.
Correct.
You get diluted when you go into institutional money, and then you're not. So someone else is running the ship. Well, did you have to give away a lot of the company?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah,
to do
you
that.
You have to. So it's a different game in that you're working with much bigger numbers now, right? And so every mistake is magnified. You know, if there are mistakes or real estate mistake, like everything just becomes more because there's a lot more at stake monetarily, versus a couple 100,000. When you're talking now millions, it becomes a different game. So.
Would you give what would be one piece of advice you would give entrepreneurs who are in that same place that you were when raising money with institutions?
I think it's really know who your partners are going to be. Like really know them as people. Beyond, because there's a lot of people who can write checks, but making sure that your values are really truly aligned.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Having the same vision.
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, there are some things that are absolutes for me. Like they, have never said you need to change the butter, right? Like butter is absolute to me. Like I'm not going to use cheaper butter. Or
what kind of butter do you use?
Okay, we use European style butter, which has the highest butter fat. That's why it's so yummy.
Okay, so what is the difference? There's American butter. Is there Canadian butter?
No. It's just European style butter.
Okay, so
and all other butter.
Okay, it's regular butter. How about like grass fed or organic and all that stuff? What's the difference?
You can get that butter. That takes it into another stratosphere. It doesn't necessarily change the flavor profile.
Oh, okay. So you're talking only about the consistency and the flavor profile?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does European style do differently?
It's higher fat.
Oh, that's what makes it so delicious,
yes,
though.
That's why it's so good. Yeah.
So it's also more expensive, probably, right?
It is way more expensive. Right. Yeah.
So,
way more expensive.
So, because a lot of times when people expand, and I've seen this with a lot of different restaurants and brands where I don't even go anymore, is that when they start to expand, their quality becomes so much, it becomes diminished. It changes, and then it's like the whole brand's gone.
Yeah.
Or when people get acquired to a bigger brand, everything, the caliber of what it was is gone.
Yeah, but we have stayed really true.
Well, I was going to say, so you put
really true to what we are without compromise.
So
about
that's
what
never been
SusieCakes
compromised.
is. No one has ever said we should do croissant sandwiches, or we should have smoothies here, right? Like you've seen concepts where that happens, right? Where you're like, what happened? This used to be Greek salad restaurant, and now whatever they're selling something crazy, great juice, like fresh juice. You're like, no, this doesn't work. So that has been really fortunate that they supported my vision and what SusieCakes is, right? Like what makes SusieCakes so special, because if we start cutting corners, then we just become another bakery.
Yeah.
And I don't want to become another bakery. Like we are so special to people because our baked goods are extraordinary and we give great service.
You do.
And you can count on us. And so if we start saying, we can do this with less expensive ingredients or less people or this or that, it's no longer SusieCakes.
So why did you decide to do it this way versus other brands, especially in the food industry, they franchise?
Yeah.
Is it because you wanted to make sure you had control of the quality?
That's exactly why. I think, a lot of what we do is custom work, right? And it's artisan, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like most franchise concepts are kind of like turnkey, where you open a bag and you add oil, right?
Yeah.
Like making Betty Crocker,
right? Is that even brands here that do that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Or they don't really have, like, you can't just hire somebody off the street and pick a city, whatever. We sold a franchise in Kansas City to then decorate a cake, right? Like it's a trained art.
Yeah.
And so I, to kind of protect the brand and the integrity of the brand, I intentionally chose to say, we're going to stay a company owned,
Yeah.
non-franchise model. Could it be a franchise model? Sure. You could totally change it up and you could probably do it. But at this juncture, that's not something that is of interest.
So then so when did you put in place? Because what you're kind of not what you're known. Well, yeah, I think you are known for this to some degree about how your employee packages are, how you treat your employees, the healthcare. What was it? The other thing that it was
the animal rescue.
The animal rescue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it sounds amazing. I'd like to work for you. I mean, you get your benefits.
If you could bake.
If I could bake, exactly. And let's not kid. I could barely even boil water. But if I was able to, because your benefits are so superior to so many other people in your world. Yeah. Was that something that was important to you at the beginning?
What was intention? I think what appeals to people working for SusieCakes is this not having to work 24/7, right? So people will come to us been a pastry chef at a hotel and are like, I'm so happy that, we close at 5, 6, 7, whatever, pick your time.
Let's talk about the benefits, because I think that this is what's extraordinary, that it is something that's very unusual. There's isn't it for women? There's, you don't have to, if moms, talk about it.
A lot of, what I wanted to do was make it that, women, whether they were in their 20s, graduating culinary school, up to women in their 60s who were empty nesters, right, could find a place at SusieCakes, right? And so we do have everything. I mean, that's one of the things I'm most proud of women 20s, 30s, whose kids are going to kindergarten. Now they're like, I have some free time on my hand. 40, their kids are going to college, or 50, so everybody's in these different stages. They may not want this high powered career, but to say I just love being around baked goods, or I love baking, or I love decorating, or I love helping somebody plan their celebration. Right. And so, our workforce is almost 80% female. And I think that's because we are so supportive of whatever stage in life that you're in, right? So you don't have to be on this career track.
Okay. So what if I was, if I was having a baby?
Yeah.
I would.
So we have a lot of pregnant women, and then some will come back after the baby, some won't. Some come back after the baby and they move into another role. Maybe they were in the kitchen and now they're answering, custom requests via email. Right. Right. So you can, when the company was bigger, there was more opportunity around that. We've scaled back since COVID, but generally speaking,
we're going to get back. We're going to circle back. We're going to circle back to COVID. I haven't forgotten. Yeah. So then, what other talk a little bit about the other benefits that you guys have.
This is a new one. We have your birthday off, right? So it's like a paid holiday to have your birthday off.
Wow.
50% off all baked goods, which is which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Vacation time. Healthcare, vision, dental, the pet insurance.
Yeah, what's this pet insurance?
Pet insurance is really important. If you have an animal who has a catastrophic illness, as I'm living through right now.
With your doggy,
it pays for their care. And those bills are like human bills. I mean, they are a couple $1,000s. And for people, a lot of people, their pets are their children. And that's a unique benefit. And then we do a dog and cat reimbursement. If you adopt an animal, we will reimburse you for the cost of rescuing that animal and what your expenses to get set up at home. Because I think animals are important in people's lives. And you come home from a hard day at work and then it's like, oh my God, here's my dog, right? And oh my God, SusieCakes helped me get this dog. And it saves an animal, right? Out of the animal shelters. So it's just a core value.
How did you? So I was going to say, is that something that has to be a core value?
Yeah.
I mean, are there other people even doing that?
I don't know if anybody else is doing
it. It came
that.
out of your situation.
Yeah. No, we've been doing this for Felix getting the
How
we've been doing the
years?
pet reimbursement. I think since almost the inception of the company.
Who thinks of this?
Yeah.
You just thought of that. Because I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yes.
I have never heard of that.
I've never heard of that either.
Yeah.
I mean, are people just clamoring to work for you over there? I mean, you would think so, right? But I guess not. Well, I think now is a very difficult time.
It's a difficult time
with the pandemic. And we'll circle back there really quickly, because what did you do to pivot in that time?
Yeah.
So, because now I think a big problem that a lot of different people are having in a lot of different industries is finding people.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the checks that people are getting.
Yeah.
So what, do you have to close down most of your shops?
Yeah.
How are you delivering? Like, what are you doing?
So we had to say, okay, how do we couldn't just, say, let's open up all the locations again. Like when the stay-at-home order came, we shut everything down. And then we said, okay, how do you
stay in business though? Aren't you losing so much money? Like,
well,
all the real estate and all the
you're
rent?
negotiating like crazy with all your landlords. It was just like a full-time negotiation with all the landlords, just saying, I don't have money coming in.
But
right?
you must have been selling a ton of cakes. People are also depressed at home,
Sure.
bored,
So people
emotionally
then started
eating.
saying, so people were writing emails to Susie at SusieCakes saying, I need that. Like, we need this in our life right now. There is nothing to look forward to.
Right.
Like, I want to take my kids to SusieCakes to be in SusieCakes. Like, we need SusieCakes.
I think my husband was one of those people.
So we were like, okay, we need to reopen. We don't have a lot of people. We don't even know if enough people are going to come in to reopen, because reopening is expensive. You got to, you have to bring all the ingredients back in. It's just a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Turn on the phones, the music system. It's a whole thing.
Right.
So
it's a whole thing. And then
it's a whole thing. So we said, okay, let's open up slowly and let's do only what we can with the people we have. So when we first opened up last April or May, we said, okay, let's open up one bakery in each district, right? Orange County, LA, San Francisco, and Texas. We're going to open up one in each.
But in Texas, wouldn't it be easier because it was much more lenient than California?
It still was, they were more lenient, but we still had trouble. People either they couldn't come to work because of childcare, or they were taking care of elders, or they lived with their grandparents. Like, there was a whole host of reasons why people, or they were just scared, right? Back in the early days, or even now, right? So there was a multitude of reasons why people were not wanting to, come back into the workforce. And so it's like, okay, we have less people. We can't offer this whole menu. I can't have 30 things. I can't have the 7 layers. I can't have the pudding, right? If those things that were like smaller sellers for us, it's like, let's stick to what people really want. And that's the cakes, right? Let's start with the cakes, whole cakes.
Like a
I think like
limited
2 or
menu?
3 flavors. Yeah. So we only had a few cakes in the beginning. And
What
we
kinds?
told
Which
people
ones?
we did our most popular, which are vanilla celebration cake, the old fashioned chocolate, and the red velvet, and then the marble. And then like we kind of added in, we kind of looked at our sales mix from the last, 14 years and saying, what are our best sellers? Let's just make those, because we have limited resources and have to bring in less ingredients for less products. So we've kind of just stuck to that plan as we were able to add people to the mix, or people who wanted to come back. We're still significantly under. So we have about 50% of the team that we had pre-COVID. So
You got to get your guy to go in the kitchen and start baking.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I mean, this is a perfect example.
So we went from a 7-day model where we were open 10 to 7 in most bakeries to 5-day-a-week model from 11 to 5. So we went from, I think we're at about 50% of the hours we used to be open. So we shortened our hours.
Yeah.
We're closed Monday and Tuesday. Close at 5 o'clock now. This is like all we can do, right? Like, there's no point in like trying to do something that you just don't have the human capacity to do. So we made shorter hours, limited menu, much more restrictive on, like, you couldn't come today and get like, a wedding cake with Indian henna on the side of it. Like, we just don't have the manpower, the bandwidth to do that kind of custom work that we used to do. So we streamlined it. We said, okay, we can't do the Indian henna, but like, here are the 10 decorations we can do for you, right?
And so did you feel like there was way more demand?
Demand
for the supply?
Way more demand.
Can you offer more money to these people? Say, hey, I'll pay you double.
We have done many things to try to change the situation. And I've landed on, it is what it is. And we will do the best we can until circumstances change. Like, you just got to be in that mindset, because that is something I cannot control.
Right. So then, but is it better? Is it from Texas to California, is Texas doing better because of the leniency though? No,
Not necessarily.
Still the same.
Yeah, not necessarily.
So, what's your what was your trajectory? Like, aren't you opening more bakeries? Were you supposed to be opening?
Oh,
more?
sure. Yeah,
What
we
was the
stopped. We stopped all development.
What was
when
supposed
COVID
to
hit.
be?
So we were supposed to
COVID,
open, I don't know, 2 or 3 bakeries last year.
and then that just put a halt on that.
Yeah. So we stopped that. And we had a couple leases that we were already, I think this Pasadena where we're opening in a couple weeks, like we were already signed a lease, and I have wanted to be in Pasadena since I opened in Brentwood. I think it's just like ground zero for us. So we knew, and we had a great landlord there who said, when you guys are ready, I'm going to be here. Right. Like he was awesome.
Yeah.
And held it, didn't make us pay dead rent, and said, I get it. I want you as a tenant. We're all in it for the long game. I'm not going to be short-sighted and try to sue you for, rent when you don't have money. It's crazy. Right. So
Exactly.
So we've started up development again, really slowly, and with the, expectation that by Q2 next year, life has got to start to come back to normal.
Right.
If not, we'll continue operating on this sort of recessed model because it works. And, people will, generally say, okay, I really love your XYZ. You don't lemon squares, right? We don't have lemon squares, but we have our lemon cake, which is similar, not exact, but try the slice of lemon cake.
Right.
See if I can move you into another treat.
Right. But then they have to buy a whole cake. Oh my god.
No, we do slices. We sell slices.
You do sell slices?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish
Yeah.
you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. So
That's not very
I know.
good.
I know.
That's-
It's the carrot cake.
I know.
I know.
God, that
I know.
carrot cake's delicious. But still, those 7 layers are my favorite. Okay. So then I think that's basically, I would like to ask you this because you've had a lot of different, you've kind of had a lot of ebbs and flows in this career and like raising money and all that. What would you say would be some leadership takeaways that you can give to people, or like that, and for an entrepreneur? Like, from what I gather from this conversation, resilience is extremely important. You didn't give up. You didn't listen to naysayers.
Right.
Have conviction and, have tenacity and persistence. Is there anything else that you would tell an entrepreneur who's wanting to start a small business, or in the process of having to, in the expansion, what, from your lessons, what you would kind of tell people besides the one that you gave us about having partners that are aligned?
Yeah.
Or anything else?
I think, it's just learning from other people, speaking to as many people as you can, because sometimes it sounds super fantastic and sexy to say, we now have 26 locations, but a lot of responsibility comes with that. Financial responsibility, human resources, there's many things that you just multiply, the stressors in your own life and on your team's life by becoming a bigger company. And sometimes people always think bigger, better, but sometimes it's not a bad thing to have, 2 or 3 or 4
super profitable places.
Or a $10 million business instead of $100 million. You have a $10 million business where you bring $2 million to the bottom line. Do you really need more? It's like personal. You just have to really know what your desire is, and be really clear that bigger can sometimes be.
And what do you think that for the leadership part, because you kind of instilled some really great stuff, the benefit package, the pet stuff, because what are some key things that you would tell someone that's important as a leader?
Yeah. Well, one thing we did early on is we have core values of the company, which we had, again, back to my standard operating procedures, before we started. And it allows you, if you really believe it, everybody's got these things with 85 things, we're honest. And, it's how do you make values that people actually say, I want to work for that company because, right? So ours are super simple of, we start with, we take celebration seriously, right? So we are not just here selling cakes. Your celebration means a lot to us. The next is your first bite is as good as your last. It speaks to consistency. The next is we make days better. We talked about that. We build more than cakes, we build careers. So I'm firmly committed. It's core value that if you come to work for SusieCakes, that all of us, the senior team, the leadership team, want to see you have a long career with us. So that is another reason why I've always been inspired to keep opening more locations, because it allows us to keep people longer, team members longer. And so we have this, right. I'll just go on a side note here, Jen, on benefits. We do, when somebody's with us 10 years, we send them to Hawaii for 5 days, 2 people, all expenses paid. When I came up with that benefit, I never thought anybody would really be at SusieCakes 10 years. We have now given away, I don't know, a dozen of those. Who even stays at a company for 10 years anymore? Nobody. Right?
People jump ship fast.
That's, but I think those people, that goes back to the value. We build more than cakes, we build more careers. Like, I want people to feel that if they want to learn and grow and get promotions, like some people don't. Like some people, not everybody is meant to be, a head baker or general manager. Maybe some people just like really enjoy coming to work and, doing what they love to do. So there's that. And then there's We Are Good Neighbors, which is about, that one was about giving back to the communities that give to us. And the last one is my favorite, but it's important. It's We Remember Where We Came From. And it's about being really humble. Aww. Right. And like, I never forget that, no matter how big the company gets or whatever kind of car I drive or, all those things, like I know what my roots are, and that's the most important thing. So I think if you have values as a leader that you share with your team, and then you actually live those values and walk the walk, you can build a really strong culture.
Oh, Susie, I love you. You're such a sweetheart. And this is like, you really are. Like, you are so authentic. You're so good. And I mean, it shows. I mean, how you treat your employees and how you've kind of built your business and your core values. I mean, I wish you nothing but luck and success and growth. And I'm so happy you came on this podcast.
Thank you. Oh. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored that you chose to have me. So
oh my gosh. And you brought treats, which make you even more of a special guest. I mean, where can people find you? Because the truth of the matter is you have too much supply. So people find her, but don't order any cake from her. So you can know where the location is, but then just keep on driving or keep on walking. Because you're not taking any, you don't deliver across the country yet. We're going to. Oh, you are?
We're working on that. Yeah. That's the next big thing we're working on right now is shipping cakes.
Shipping cakes?
Shipping cakes.
When would that be kind of out and about?
Early next year.
Really?
Yeah. We're working really hard right now
to
get
my
that going. Because we get a ton of requests for people who used to live here, now live on the East Coast. They're like, I need the celebration cake. Like, I have to have it. Or I want to send it to my best friend who lives in Boca Raton. Like, people are like, we need to be able to move these things around the country.
For sure.
So that's the next big.
We got to get more employees, lady. Let's just hope that happens. But like I said, you can go on the website. Don't order any cake. And but if you do, try to maybe send an email about those 7 layers and see when they're coming. And those are the best. So where is it? SusieCakes.com.
SusieCakes.com. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all. I mean, you were a pleasure, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Habits and hustle, time to get it rolling. Stay up on the grind, don't stop, keep it going. Habits and hustle, from nothing into something. All out, hosted by Jennifer Cohen. Visionaries, tune in, you can get to know them. Be inspired, this is your moment. Excuses, we ain't having that. The Habits and Hustle podcast, powered by Habits.